पुराधिनाथ काल भैरवं भजे देवराज से. Hi guys, I hope the audio is coming fine. Good evening. Thank you for joining the live stream. Again, my usual apologies for coming online after so many days. This is the longest break I've taken because a lot of music projects came up, and frankly too many festivals, going to friends' places, celebrating cricket. I could not find a perfect spot for discussing the almost esoteric and very underground subjects we discuss, which are not usually that popular on YouTube. So I thought, who was going to be really in a mood to discuss those things? Thankfully, Shehla Rashid did something yesterday. She did the interview many days back, of course, but the interview was uploaded yesterday. She came on the podcast with Smita, Prakash. First of all, let me know how many of you all have already watched that podcast. Because we are going to basically live react to that today, because she gave us, at least she gave me, a fabulous chance to get back some of my algorithm losses in this gigantic break, and we have some juicy aspects to discuss this recent development. So just few days back I was sharing some screenshots and I was giving some examples from here and there about Barkha Dutt seemingly having a shift in her ideas and views about what this government is really. Is it really the Hindu fascist thing that we have been hearing about from 2013 basically, and or maybe 14? Or is it something different? Or is it something not fascist? Or is there some only tendencies of fascism? It might not be just a straight out Hindu fascist government. That much I think has been a shift in the view of people like Barkha Dutt. And then some other people have joined, many Muslim voices have come up, and now we have Shehla Rashid, one of the three horsemen of apocalypse in India at one point. She was one of the far left commies from the student strata of our society, who hate everything about this government, who have had a preconceived notion about BJP and RSS being a Hindu fascist government forever and ever. So such a person, all of a sudden, posting out tweets for the last few months, some of which I had posted screenshots of from my community tab on my YouTube channel, that she was appreciating the government, she was appreciating, saying positive things about the Indian army, that see, we are so much safer than other countries, we are so much safer from even places in Israel, because there are people who really want to attack us the same way Hamas attacked Israel, but see, we are not being attacked that way, and the Indian army deserves credit for that. Now, of course, the moment she says this, there's a huge division between the right wing. I don't think there's a huge division. I think most people are still skeptical of her, but there is some kind of division about how accepting or believing should we be of her. Now, whether we should accept her or believe her, that's a question only time will tell. For now, I think at best we can reserve our judgment and just take her arguments at face value. But without those emotions in play, what we can conclusively say is that this development is very intriguing, interesting, fascinating. Those adjectives I think can be used about this. Now, why am I interested very much in her and her shift in views? Is because, of course, I am a former leftist myself. I was an economic leftist until I was 28 years old, I think. Up until 2018, that is. I think I was 27, yeah. And I was culturally also a leftist until late 2021, until I had no idea that there is something to be proud of being Indian, being Hindu, having something to be proud of in India's past culture, which I came to know after reading Sanjeev Sanyal, etc. And I got into Sanjeev Sanyal's interviews. I showed an interest in Sanjeev Sanyal first and foremost because I at least heard him talking about concepts like small government and libertarianism. He clarified, of course, that he's not a libertarian, but at least he acknowledged there's something called libertarianism. He was not living in that echo chamber of that the only fight between parties should be about who gives out more free shit. Okay, there's only a competition has to be among that कौन कितना free चीजें दे, कौन कितना सरकारी नौकरी खड़ा कर दे आपके सामने. That's the only competition people used to have before Sanjeev Sanyal. Now, Sanjeev Sanyal was someone who believed in small governments and acknowledged there's something called libertarian to be something called libertarian, but I'm just not going to be that libertarian. That was his stand. But he has also written some books called Land of Seven Rivers. So I got into that and I had to shift my views because I came across brand new information. Now, of course, we have to discuss whether Shehla Rashid has been reading up more, has been acknowledging more information. She says that she has gotten into more ground level research, which is causing her to shift her views. Of course, we will use this 2.5 hour long interview with Smita Prakash to get into the nitty-gritties. And of course, we are all noobs when it comes to body language reading, but we have some experience in our lives about how people talk when they are lying, or what level of liar someone must be to convince you that they are not lying. We will try to poke holes in her argument, or in her tone, in her demeanor. Okay. But for now, I am kind of convinced that she actually has had a change of heart, because I can relate to her position. I can relate to the positions of so many Bengalis in my viewership numbers as well. People who were liberals or commies, or who are on the way to become commies and liberals, but then they did change their views. Now, one counter argument to people who are extremely skeptical of Shehla Rashid at the moment would be that, see, if you are not going to accept people who were formerly leftists, Hindutva is not going to go anywhere. Okay, the people who believed in Hindutva before 2014, that number was really a minority. Okay, straight out, it was a very, very small minority of people who believe in the idea of Hindutva before 2014. Most people voted for BJP because they were fed up of Congress's shenanigans, and they voted for BJP because they thought BJP is going to bring development. After that, people started shifting their views on Hindutva, and after Corona mainly, people started reading and watching a whole lot more content and reading different kinds of books. The main shift in favor of Hindutva has happened after 2020, 2021. Absolutely, that is the case. There's no denying this particular fact. So to what extent can you go to being a Puritan and saying that no, these people were communists just up until last week, and all of a sudden they are supporting the government? There must be something fishy. The problem is, there really must be something fishy for some people. It might not be so in case of common people like us, for whom there were no big stakes in becoming a leftist. We were leftists just because we grew up in a leftist scenario, and we thought there's a whole capitalist oppression going on everywhere, and we must oppose this, and Muslims are in danger all the time, and if this Hindu fascist government comes to power, it's the end of story for all these innocent Muslim people. A.R. Rahman will be kicked out of the country. That's the kind of vibe we used to always get from BJP. So when we people like us are leftists, and when people like us change our views, there are not gigantic tectonic shifts in the politics of the country, right? But there are gigantic tectonic shifts when people like Shehla Rashid change their views or shift their views. So we have to be more skeptical of people like Shehla Rashid than one has to be skeptical of people like us. But even then, let's delve into this interview, and let's see what her arguments are. Now, of course, the spoiler I gave is that for now I think she has legitimately shifted her views. But I'm not saying that now therefore I agree with her on everything, because, and this is one of the reasons why I think she really has changed her views, and she is not saying random things to gain some favors from the government, etc. Because she is still out and out an academic leftist. Okay, from the interview, for those of you who haven't seen it yet, who will now see it with us, you will notice that the tangents she takes, the premises she sets, okay, in her conversations, in her word choices, in her assumptions, all of that is purely leftist even at the moment, because she's a sociology PhD now. She is becoming an assistant professor of sociology. So it's not like she's become a conservative all of a sudden. That is not something I found in her speech or interview, whatever she said. So that is why I can basically understand that she is probably just, as she herself claimed, that she is now saying the truth as she sees it. She has come out of an echo chamber and she is speaking the truth. And the truth really is, of course, that BJP is a left of center political party when it comes to economics. Absolutely right. in culture, you could at best argue, I think, that they are centrist, really. And on economics, they are absolutely left of center. All the policies they are executing, those used to be the wet dreams of Congress and even people like Amartya Sen. They just have so much hatred for uh, visually. They have that visual colonization in their mind that, yeah, someone wearing saffron, speaking in Hindi, having a tika, having vibhuti, that means they are Hindu fascists, because even Bollywood, everything, all our media has taught us these things. Based on that, people like Amartya Sen criticize BJP, whereas BJP is executing absolutely left of center policy after another. They have privatized some coal mines, some Air India, etc. But those are a drop in a gigantic ocean. So they are nowhere right wing in terms of economics. So why shouldn't a person like Shehla Rashid find a sort of kinship with BJP? It is very obvious. If any leftist, just few months back, I had made that short that when someone asked me that why do liberals hate BJP, I said that liberals should have been the biggest supporters of BJP. They are everything. BJP is everything that liberals stand for, both on economics and on culture. So if Shehla Rashid has all of a sudden decided to be fully intellectually honest, that is where she would reach. That is the conclusion she would reach. So what I'm asking those people, since majority of you are probably skeptical of Shehla Rashid, I am asking you is that I fully acknowledge that she might be a plant by the government. She might be lying out of her teeth. But if she really had changed her vision or her judgment, if she had really changed her views, what do you think she would have said differently? If you really conclude that she is in fact speaking the truth, wouldn't she say these exact same things, being a sociologist, being from leftist academia? So all I'm saying is that a leftist academic is acknowledging that BJP is pretty left of center, and then therefore saying that, yeah, they are doing a great job. That's my introductory monologue. Now let's check some of your comments, and then we will get into Smita Prakash's podcast. And how was your Diwali, Kali Pujo, guys? We are having a great time in the World Cup as well. My cricket addiction is fully back. Hello, ready for final? Yes, I am so excited for the finals. Jai Shri Ram dinner. Yeah, I haven't watched. Yeah, we will watch it together. Shubho Deepavali, Shomen Balti. Your views on both the Cricket World Cup semi-finals? Yeah, I watched both of them. It was so much, so fascinating to watch. And this India semi-final was the first full cricket match I watched in about, I think, 10-15 years. So I have no idea how India plays these days. I only hear some stories from a close friend. But I could not help but keep shouting from the very second ball. What kind of batting is this? Okay, Rohit Sharma is the king of sacrifices. Who the fuck, a captain, an elite top-notch batsman decides that, fuck 50s, fuck centuries, I will just start a semi-final with such a tough team in the World Cup by hitting 4s and 6s. I have never seen cricket like this when we were growing up. That is so fluffy and nice to watch. AIM had predicted this about Shehla Rashid about 2 years ago. I like that she mentioned the fact Muslims benefit disproportionately in all of Modi's welfare schemes. Yeah, she's basically saying the truth, whatever there is. Shubho Kartik Puja Dada, ebare biye kore ekta Kartik. Well, it's completely political, not change of heart. Fair enough. What is the difference between communism and socialism? Communism is complete sharing of profits, and socialism has some elements of democracy to ensure a welfare state. This I call the Lallantop syndrome. I observed right before 2019 they shifted toward BJP, and funnily after the result came, Lallantop shifted toward this usual position. I mean, even A. Acharya at Congress accepts that in name of Modi criticism, people became anti-India. I can't imagine why these people might be lying now. Aren't they destroying their brand? Any clue? Yeah, that is what I've been thinking. I don't see what she gains from all of a sudden shifting her position, which she hasn't really shifted all that 180 degree. Okay, अचानक ऐसा नहीं है कि सुबह शाम उठ के शिवलिंग में पूजा कर रही है, दिखा रही है कि वो कितना सनातनी मुसलमान है. She is not doing those things. That is why I'm a little more trusting of her at the moment. But more importantly, some people were saying that she wants to become an assistant professor. She wants to have a tenured position in the Department of Sociology. That's why she is saying those things. This argument is specifically just this argument in terms of skepticism of Shehla Rashid. This is very wrong. This has no relevance in her career, guys. She is Muslim. She's a woman. She's from Kashmir. and she is a sociologist, okay? You have no idea the amount of money she could have made in first world countries, in the most leading Ivy League universities. People would be ready to bring out a red carpet for her कि तुम अच्छा देश को गाली भी देती हो, मोदी के अगेंस्ट भी हो, औरत भी हो, मुसलमान भी हो, कश्मीर से हो, अरे भाई आ जाओ, क्या कर रहे हो इंडिया में? So she would have gotten those places very easily, okay? She did not need an assistant professor's job to start lying for in favor of BJP again. I can't imagine. Okay, here to learn, don't be patriarchal. Kartik Pujo. Okay. She probably doesn't believe in Hindutva. Yeah, these guys just like the current BJP, nothing else. Yeah, that is what I believe so. I'm from that group thanks to Sai Deepak. Yeah, I was liberal pre-COVID. Yeah, exactly. Be skeptical but supportive of them coming into our fold at the same time. It's a delicate balance. Absolutely, very well said. And we will have to maintain this delicate balance, because where are we going to go if we don't change people's minds? Did you just assume the gender? I was on the fence till I read Sitaram Goel. Probably nobody else could convince me of Hindutva. Yeah, Sitaram Goel himself is such a product. He was a communist who believed. He has written in this in the first page of How I Became a Hindu that I thought Gita, Mahabharata, Ramayana, these need to be burned. Manusmriti needs to be burned if we are to uplift this broken Indian society out of all its problems. We must burn these texts. That guy became Sitaram Goel. Okay, so we will have to have an accepting view here. I started developing my political ideology during CA riots, Ram Mandir issues 2019-20. Okay. चलो शुरू करते हैं फिर. By the way, Shami is a prime example that Amit Shah, Modi's reign, Muslims are not allowed to get jobs like BCCI. His head is Amit Shah's nephew, someone related. State capitalism, which was USSR policy till Stalin's variety came about, and other forms of socialism is non-Marxian variety of socialism. Yes, and Muhammad Shami is a pasmanda. Is it true that communists wanted to nationalize women in Soviet, or is it far stretch? Nationalize women meaning? Also, Smita did not put these questions in clear. How much was she going to charge? She interrupted her countless times to further push her. So you can be only that much pressure heckling the guest. After all, she's a guest in your studio. Okay, let's start. Are you ready, guys? Bring popcorn. Let's scrutinize her every word.
You can see very visible. It's very visible. There is a palpable perception of security. People can move around freely. We should take a moment to acknowledge that we are living through a historically very important phase. We should be lucky that we are in this country and not anywhere else in the world right now, because there is peace, there is development. They were like, oh, why are you supporting the government? And it was then that I realized for the very first time in 2020 that a lot of the criticism that we do, a lot of the criticism of the governments is for the sake of it. People in Kashmir, they thought that Afzal Guru has been hanged for electoral gains. He was hurriedly executed. I want him to be released and clear his name, because I believe that he's not he hasn't advocated terrorism. He hasn't advocated, any sort of dangerous ideology that at least I am aware of. Even if I become the Prime Minister, do you think that communalism will go in one day? It will not go. It will stay for hundreds of years to come. That is a reality. My message should not be that, भाई यहाँ इंडिया में बहुत discrimination है, आप घर पे बैठ जाओ, हमारा कुछ नहीं होना है. It shouldn't be like that. The message that I want to send out is that rely on your own experiences. There is no pressure on me. I'm living my life normally. Yes, there is the question of what I've said, and I am willing to apologize for it, because I relied on second-hand information.
Namaste, Jai Hind. You're watching or listening to another edition of the ANI podcast.
Yes, Shamis is saying Muslims getting both at higher rate at this time. Yes, BJP can't touch them. For example, maximum Delhi riots, no violence, Muslim riots are freed on bail. Yes, that Gujarat rapist also got freed on bail. Not bail. Uska time hi khatam ho gaya. A guy who smashed a kid's head with a stone, that guy got freed. He's roaming around freely in the streets of Gujarat. Okay, 42,000 crore already spent on Muslim subsidies. Yes. I think Bengal's alone madrasa education budget is 5,166 crores. So yeah, if Shehla Rashid is being honest, she will of course notice that this government is doing more for Muslims than for Hindus. She just has to acknowledge that, and that is the truth. So why would she be lying here? We have criticisms of the government for exactly what she is acknowledging and supporting. So while we can acknowledge that she is probably not lying, at the same time we can push the government to not do these things.
You will be broken into pieces. Student leaders Kanhaiya Kumar and Omar Khalid were arrested. Ever since then, the term Tukde Tukde gang has been used by the right wing for those who are perceived as anti-national. Our guest today, Shehla Rashid, was part of the JNU student protest movement at that time, and she's had her sympathies with the Kashmiri separatists in the past, as also with the far-left agitationists. But she seems to have changed her stance a bit. In many of her tweets, she's seen praising both Mr. Modi as well as Mr. Amit Shah and the Lieutenant Governor of Jammu and Kashmir. So let's get started with this conversation, and you judge for yourself where Shehla Rashid stands today. Welcome to the show, Shehla.
Thank you.
I've been looking forward to speaking with you for a long time,
Thanks.
but we've been on opposing ends of the spectrum for a long time. So I guess there was mutual, what should I say, skepticism maybe about how a conversation would go. But I'm glad you've taken the step and you've come to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I think it's a sign of the times that we are living in. There is a lot of polarization, and that is what I think drives skepticism. And there is labeling of one another as one thing or the other. So I think that's what causes the skepticism, I believe.
And I think you've done things which resulted in labeling, and journalists are always labeled. So, and especially women journalists. So I'm kind of used to the labeling. It doesn't get easy.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, years and years in the profession, when you get labeled, there are people who tend to say that you should have a thick skin, you should have the skin of an alligator, but it doesn't happen. And I'm guessing as an activist, you also you couldn't develop alligator skin. We are humans.
No, not at all. And especially like when we talk about social media, in the age of social media, all of the criticism, you can actually see it. Earlier, before social media, even if people were criticizing you, you couldn't see it. I mean, maybe you would hear something secondhand, but now it's directly, there is a very sort of ontological immediacy to it. It's very immediate. It's directed at you. You are tagged in it. You can see it. And initially, I used to take it in my stride, but eventually, it affected me psychologically. And when I realized that, that's when I started to, in stages. I mean, it was very difficult to get rid of social media, but yeah, I had to do that for my own sanity.
Yes, this is one of the themes of her interview, and one of the points which kind of has persuaded me to believe her that she's not lying and she's not a plant, etc. That she keeps talking about this entire process of this last 1.5 years or 2 years of she being less on social media, and when she does come back on social media, all of a sudden she's more in favor of the government, etc. She keeps talking about this being an entire mental shift and suffering from mental health problems as well, and this shift in her view being also sort of in parallel with her worldview for her personal life as well. She does not want to harp upon or crib about just the negativities or the problems in her life or in her community's life or in her country's life or in her society's life, okay? That is the general shift in view that one leftist has to go through when that leftist is no longer a leftist. The reason why a whole lot of people in BJP at their core are purely leftist, identity politics, wokes basically, but just in favor of the for Hindus, and why Trinamool is identically CPIM is because their worldview personally has not changed. Okay, just that a different party has come to power, and their views are still that सरकार को कुछ करना चाहिए, सरकार क्यों कुछ नहीं कर रही है, or that really only the government can alleviate people from poverty, etc. Those trust in government, etc. And that now that my favorite party has come to power, therefore now the government should do absolutely anything and everything to stop the powers of the opponent party, which the BJP is not listening to their base, obviously. But there are people saying demanding absolutely insane things, which will bite them back in their asses the day BJP goes out of power. So when someone thinks that their power will remain forever and after, and we can oppress the opponents in any way we want, that's the way leftists think. But Shehla Rashid has shifted a little in that view at least.
So your life it's a very interesting life. You've led a young life, but still you've gone through various stages which
Yes.
people take a lifetime to go through those experiences. You've gone through that very early in life.
That's right.
To understand what happened to you, what you did, why you did, I need you to go back to the 90s, simply because I think that must have been the most formative period of your
Correct.
thought process and what happened when you turned very critical against the political establishment. So let's go back to your life in Kashmir in the 90s to understand where you came from, what happened, what was childhood like. So go back to the background.
I mean, I grew up in a broken home, in a conflict zone. So I think that's not easy for anybody. Especially for me, watching my mother, get beaten up and face domestic violence on a routine basis. It certainly makes you angry. It makes you very sensitive to issues of injustice
And I don't think we really can ignore this aspect about her, that her father allegedly, at least from her side, is an abusive father who used to beat them up, I guess, or at least be mean to them, the daughters, and used to beat up her mother, who was a government servant. So should we really ignore this, that okay, here was this Muslim man oppressing his wife and beating her up? On the other hand, on the other side of the spectrum is a prime minister who has empowered Muslim women to at least have some amount of increase in their dignity in their married lives. Whose side do you think she should logically take here?
perceived injustice. So you are what you can call me. I mean, I call myself a precocious politician. It's never too late for politics in India, but we were in some kind of hurry to enter politics very fast. So I've done a kind of internship in politics, a 3 months internship in politics, during which I learned and unlearned a lot of things. But going back where it started from, why I was so sensitive to issues of injustice or perceived injustice, is because of what you witness at home, what you witness all around you, and of course the power of narrative, I would say. I mean,
Before we come to the power of narrative, tell me a little bit about your locality, where you lived, what were your neighbors, and you say that your mother
Now,
faced
this
physical.
is another one of the recurring themes why I would say that I still don't agree with her on everything, but I can acknowledge that she's probably not lying when she says that her views has changed, is that she keeps approaching this entire issue from that postmodernist Marxist academic lens, okay? The lens that people in sociology academia usually apply, which is she keeps alluring to the power of narratives, echo chambers, and media, her upbringing, the trauma she faced. She is putting all these things on the table without ever questioning whether there was something problematic in the texts itself which were being propagated. Is there any epistemological problem in the community? That is something she never touches in the entire conversation. So in terms of critical theory of race, okay, intersectionality, she's all in. When it comes to critical theory of religion, she does not touch it with a 10-foot pole, and that is what I've seen with Western media, Western liberals, and even insanely, even Western right-wingers, Western libertarians. When it comes to religion, they are absolute dumb fucks. My favorite American podcasters, Patrick Bet-David, Tim Pool, they are absolutely clueless to whenever they have to speak about religion. Okay, for example, the Israel-Palestine conflict. They keep talking about it as if it's a nationality, nation-state issue. It's some Arabs versus that one random country or locality called Palestine, and this another country called Israel. It's a conflict between these two countries, and somehow people have this consensus all over the world that it's okay to defend yourself or get into a war based on your territorial problems or based on the problems you are facing as a nation state, but not on the basis of problems you are facing as a religion. Whereas you are just shifting the gun to the wrong direction. You're putting a band-aid over it. The problem really is one religion versus another religion. Now the argument against it usually is that, no, why are you saying like that? Saudi Arabia, UAE are also Muslim countries, they are not in favor of it. Yes, that does not change the fact that the problem from Palestine is based on religion. Saudi Arabia and UAE are not taking part in that problem which is based on religion. They are consciously staying away from it. That doesn't change the fact that the problem in Palestine and Israel is a religious problem. And that is also what academics everywhere do. That is what right-wingers in USA are doing, everyone except Ben Shapiro. And that is what even Shehla Rashid does here today. That, lots of things are problem here and there, and I have now learned to I have learned to look at those problems from a different angle. That is her shift in her view. But the problem is still never anywhere in the religion. That is her base premise. And that is why I think she is believable here. She is not doing a complete 180 के चलो अभी तो मैं ex Muslim बन गई हूँ, devout Hindu बन गई हूँ, सब हो गया, सनातनी Muslim बन गई हूँ. She is not playing that game. That is why I have some trust on her. But of course I would not ever vote for her or anything, because she's a goddamn leftist still. But whatever she is noticing in BJP to favor, those things are really done by BJP, and she should really be appreciative of those things as a leftist.
Physical abuse at the hands of your father. She was a government servant, if I wasn't mistaken. She retired from government service. So at that time, did you and your sister, you're the only two sisters, right?
Yeah.
Did you seek help? Did your mother seek help? She was an empowered woman at the workplace. Why did she take the beating? Was there any family help? Could you give me a little
we lived in joint family, and it was in downtown Srinagar, which has been the hub of insurgency, and it's also where, the Kashmiri Pandits, before I was born or before I could come to my senses, there used to be a lot of Kashmiri Pandits. So there used to be a lot of this narrative around ki all the good teachers are gone,
because the Pandits were the teachers.
Used to be the better teachers. So I think we never had the generations before us, they were really good at math, really good at grammar, and they owed it to those people. So it was a lot of we've seen encounters, we've heard firing. There's that one incident where my sister, she was holding a pot of curd, like a clay pot, and there was a firing, there was a gunshot in the background, and it just fell from her hand. And to this date, all of my friends, whenever we are at a party, Diwali party, say for example, there are crackers. So my friends, they don't get stunned. I get stunned very easily. So I think pretty much everyone in Kashmir suffers from PTSD. And when you combine that with, if there are problems at your own home, there weren't a lot of institutional mechanisms. As you know, the PWDVA Act, it has come only in 2005, the Domestic Violence Act, which is a good act, but it has come only in 2005. It wasn't there before. So there weren't a lot of mechanisms for us to, seek help. But there is this paradox of sorts almost, where women who are submissive and they are dependent on their husbands and they are homemakers, they actually, I don't want to undermine their struggles or anything, but they actually have it easier in a sense, because when you are working, you are expected to work, and then you are also expected to work at home, and then you are also expected to contribute financially. So it's like having two full-time jobs. So my mother, while she worked at the hospital, she was in the essential services. She's never taken a day off. But at the same time, when she would come home, so she would have to do all of this and then also put up with other things. So I think that I discuss this with my cousins quite often, that, why are working women facing more domestic violence? That's something of a, phenomenon. Because
so you saw your mother being, pardon me for saying this, but you saw your mother being beaten by your dad?
Yes, in fact, I remember one incident, when she confronted him over something. He hit her so hard that she left, in her left ear, she partially lost hearing. And that is a very traumatized upbringing, and then you have a trauma response to everything. So the moment you see some injustice, you just cannot stand it, you cannot stand back, you need to intervene. So even if it's some kind of, someone is beating.
I understand that. That seems very relevant and if not right or wrong, it seems very familiar to me at least, because most hardcore, fanatically leftist women I know in Bengal, at least, people whom I know personally, people who have been friends or people who are friends of friends, people who I know from social media, most of them have had a traumatic childhood. Most of them have had either absolutely insane fucking asshole abusive fathers, or have had nut job mothers as well, or have had absolutely crazy parents as well. And not in some cases the parents weren't even to blame. It's their head got chewed off by wokeism anyway, and they started themselves thinking that everything my parents are doing is toxic parenting. So there was blame to go on both ways. But the recurring theme was always that they have gigantic complaints about their upbringing, whether based on legitimate reasons or illegitimate reasons, whatever. But so that's what she's also discussing. Her journey to becoming a feminist or a leftist was also triggered by the same things that I have noticed among my Bengali leftist friends as well, mainly Bengali female leftist friends.
Up somebody else on the street side, you just can't hold yourself back. You want to intervene in that thing because it's so personal to you, So you develop that kind of, whether you call it sensitivity or trauma response, whatever you want to call it.
And you talked about...
For disclaimer, I don't agree with any of her phrases and terminologies and premises. Okay, trauma response, it does not have to be a trauma response, but that is how the academia is. That is how American Psychological Association works, and they bring out the literature which is followed by psychologists and therapists everywhere in the world. That is the psychology literature everywhere in the world. So you can't help that part. She is part of academia, she will use the language of academia. Ye to hoga hi. But what so far whatever she's saying seems believable to me.
Your neighborhood, I've been to that neighborhood.
Yeah.
I've seen those locked homes of Kashmiri Pandits.
Right.
And I've also known friends who left from that area and their home was then occupied. Some kind of similar stories I've heard from family members who occupied homes of, partition victims. I mean, those who
Right.
left India and went to Pakistan
Yeah.
and their homes were given to.
Yeah.
So those kind of stories, and it's probably wrong to draw parallels because Pakistan became another country. Here
Right.
it wasn't another country.
Yeah.
Here it was a
Internally
refugee.
displaced,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was. So it's a complicated kind of a story. Did you have friends who were Kashmiri Pandits in your neighborhood?
No, not really. We grew up in a pretty homogenous setup because by the time we came to census, I think it was a completely Muslim population. But my parents.
See, she is not completely gung ho about BJP or Hindutva. How can you tell? Because she does not say that is called ghettoization. Leftists are supposed to be against ghettoization, but she still has this blockade in her mind that was not ghettoization. That was just a homogeneous culture I grew up in a Hindu majority country out of the blue, where I did not have one single Kashmiri Pandit friend. That's not ghettoization.
Generation, yeah, they talk about it a lot. They had Pandit friends, but no, we didn't.
So growing up in the 90s, what was your surrounding like? It was, did you completely believe in the narrative that it was oppression by the center on Kashmir?
So earlier we didn't understand it. The censorship was at a very high level. So even though you saw things around you, you didn't talk about it at the dinner table. So for example, there was an
So it was
encounter.
a personally put censorship, right? I mean, there was no...
Yeah, I think the
Because
parents
Kashmiri
were
media
afraid of
was-
exposing
okay.
the children to the conflict narrative. And even though it was all around, and that's the, sort of stunning thing about
SRS is making an extremely important point, that it doesn't even matter whether she is authentic or not. If she really is an useful idiot, if she is fearing for something and has become a plant in favor of BJP, even that is a huge benefit to our side, because this is a trump card. Because you and I might hate identity politics, but the world, or at least India's politics for now, American politics today, all these international organizations, okay, UN, etc., all these organization institutions run on identity politics out and out. Bread and butter है इन लोगों का identity politics. तो इन उतना आइडेंटिटी पॉलिटिक्स है ही, अब उस रूल में खेलना ही है, अब तो क्या करे. तो हमको भी ये चेक मार्क मारने वाली ये ऐसी मिल गई है, मुस्लिम है, कश्मीर से है, महिला है, तो चलो फेवर में है तो फेवर में है, मजे करो.
it, that there's an encounter happening, and there was something called a mandir school. So where the locality where I come from, it's called Sona Masjid, and there is a Raghunath mandir over there. It's a really large, it's a grand temple, but after the Pandits left, I believe it must have been deserted, and nobody was taking care of it. So the insurgents will often take shelter over there, and there used to be a school run from the premises. So even though there were these very clear, sort of indications or remnants of the past, so to speak, we never really talked about it. It was never discussed, the conflict, everything. At least in my home, it wasn't discussed. So maybe the parents didn't want, us to be exposed to that narrative. And it wasn't until 2010 that my generation became aware of the conflict in a very immediate sense as to what is, happening. Like before that, we knew like there's something going on, but we started talking about only in 2010.
But you saw the militants openly.
Yeah.
You saw all that
Yeah,
happening.
yeah.
But when you say that parents didn't talk about it, but it was obvious all around you
Yes.
that militants. So in the 90s, India almost lost Kashmir, right? It was almost like it was talked about whether Kashmir can still be a part of India or not. That was the conversation which was happening around the world. And you were growing up in Kashmir. Did you believe in the Azadi narrative at that time?
Oh, we had no idea. I mean, there was one instance where my deceased Khala, she passed away in 2020. So she had an incident. We were very small at that time. She was walking through the Palladium lane and there was a bomb blast over there. And her, I think, right arm was nearly severed and it was saved by a very miraculous surgery. But even then, despite all of this, at least in my family, it wasn't discussed. There was some kind of censorship where, it was probably so explosive a topic that we didn't talk about it. Despite, for 4 years she was in recovery. Her arm, it was like it took a lot of time to get back to normal. But we never talked about it.
Now, this is a tricky situation because Bangals, at least, that is the Bengali immigrants from partition who got kicked out of Bangladesh, like my family, etc. Our families have also never ever discussed the horrors of partition or 71 war. Okay, so that is a similar thing being described by her as well. Like Sanjeev Sanyal's podcast with Smita Prakash only. Sanjeev Sanyal was saying that now we know these words called PTSD. So now we know why exactly didn't these families teach their teach their future generations that you have no idea what the fuck we went through, bro. Because they did not want to bring up those things, maybe because of PTSD, or what were they going to talk about? Say, kid, we were coming on a train and right in front of my eyes I saw my relative or my mother or my wife or daughter getting raped by Muslims, or I saw their heads getting chopped off. What were they going to talk about anyway, okay, to kids? And by the time we grew up, we were on our way. We were liberals and commies and atheists ourselves. So not that our parents were indifferent. So that might have been the reason why we were never told these stories. Interestingly, what is the reason she was also being sort of guarded from these realities of Kashmiri society? Maybe because they shared some unconscious or conscious guilt that we really did these things and we really shouldn't have done, or maybe she comes from a family who thinks that these things should not be repeated, and therefore I'll particularly not want my children to go into this. For example, in Dagestan, specifically in Mahachkala, where those people of Mahachkala went to the Mahachkala airport, and it's a place in Russia-Europe border, okay? Dagestan, there is a special village called Mahachkala, from where the great Khabib Nurmagomedov comes from, okay? The arguably the greatest MMA fighter of all time. So in Mahachkala airport, people stormed the airport recently, few weeks back, because they heard a plane from Israel has just landed. All of them went to beat up the people in the aeroplane, okay? Now in that Mahachkala only, nearby Mahachkala, there's another village in Dagestan only, from where Zabit का सरनेम क्या है मैं भूल गया. He is another MMA fighter, okay? Zabit Magomed Sharipov probably. Anyway, so now let me just briefly tell you the interesting differences between these two places. So in Mahachkala, there are still people who are trying to take revenge of Israel's actions, and even Khabib believes in all of these things. He was against that French professor who got his head chopped off. He's against Israel, of course. But Khabib's father specifically didn't want his kids to become terrorists and all the kids in the neighborhoods to become Islamic terrorists. That's why he started the MMA gym in the first place. All of these people, Khabib and Islam Makhachev, all of these people are students of Khabib's father. On the other hand, there's another village just few kilometers from Mahachkala. There, Zabit was taught by a Christian, okay? By a Christian Russian man who stayed there, and he was from a karate background. And even there in his gym, Muslim fathers used to send their kids because they didn't want their kids to become Islamic terrorists, and used to in fact say, if you look at that, look towards that mosque, I will break your hands. You will never go into these religious stuff. You will learn martial arts, go home straight, study, go to sleep. That's what actively was pursued by parents in those regions, okay? So what Shehla is saying, her mother never telling her these things, that also might be believable.
Conflict, and it's really the street protests of 2008, 9, and 10 that really sort of give us an awareness that there is even a conflict. So till then there was no. I mean, I can speak for myself at least. There was no awareness of the conflict.
So what happened in 2010? For you and in Kashmir, because there are many viewers and listeners, Shehla, who tune in, who live abroad. They are this post conflict generation, right? Who are not aware of what happened in 2010. Instead of me giving an explainer, tell the audience from your perspective.
And frankly, we live in a country where people change their political parties all the fucking time, and so people who have changed their views, we might not have known about those things, or we might not have read all their books to know about those things. For example, commies think that whatever Ambedkar wrote up until 1935. 99% of commies in India don't know that what he wrote in 1946, right? Pakistan or partition of India. So now that we have social media, we are getting aware of the evolution in thoughts of so many people. 50 साल पहले होने से ये हमको पता भी नहीं चलता था. That is why I think someday, no matter how much you hate Shining Ghosh or Shining Ghosh hates BJP, in 10-15 years, I think Shining Ghosh will be a member of BJP or a prominent member of BJP, because when it comes to hardcore street campaigns, the campaign part of politics, not all the other things, good looks or connections or power or the power of narratives, arguments, वो सब छोड़ो. Purely campaigning की अगर बात करें तो I think Shiny, Shubhendu Adhikari and Mamata Banerjee are I think the top 3 people in Bengal.
So these years of 2008, 9 and 10, which saw summer protests over one issue or the other. 2008 was the Amarnath land row. 2009 was the Asiya Nilofer incident, and 2010 it started with the Machil encounter, and afterwards, the killing of a teenager. So there were a lot of like 3 summers of protest, you can say. And the media used to describe it as not just a protest but a siege, because everything was shut. There were street protests, young boys, and I think it was a break from the 90s insurgency where young boys or young men, they had taken up guns. These people, they weren't armed. They were throwing stones at whatever the signs of the establishment, at the armed forces, police, whatever. And then the response was bullets. So a lot of people were killed in 2010. Almost 110 people, young boys, and including one girl, they were killed. So all of us started to think, oh, what's happening? Because these people were of our age. And I used to think at that time...
You were in school then?
I was in college. And I used to discuss with my friends, like, what if I weren't a girl? Because girls are more protected. But what if I weren't a girl? Would I have gone out in these protests? And, would I have been a part of those? So there was a lot of, like, immediate awareness of the conflict. And you can say all of my college years, 2007 to 11, 3 of those years were simply lost. Like, the academic calendar was simply, lost to... I did my engineering from NIT Srinagar, computer science engineering. And 3 out of those 4 years were simply gone, because of the protests and everything. And initially we used to think, oh, why are these people doing it? Why are they going out on the streets? Why are they creating this havoc? But 2010 was really when when the civilian casualties...
why are people... So in your mind and between you friends, were you blaming the protesters or were you blaming the establishment?
It started with blaming
Interesting question asked by Smita Prakash, but before that, some interesting questions have come in the comment section here. Let me just reply to that. Here to Learn is saying, will BJP lose their Hindutva in 10-15 years and stay Hindu in name only, and new Hindu party will form? I think yes, but how much of Hindutva there really is in BJP today? I'm not saying that as a harsh criticism or something. I'm saying we are getting pretty secular and neutral laws, and or even mostly pro Muslim laws. Of course, the government is still making temples, not mosques. That's the only thing you can argue in favor of BJP being pro-Hindutva. Or even then, that could be countered by saying that the government gets massive funds by taxing those temples in the first place. So it's a grey area, and I think the country will be getting more and more Hindu fund now, because all corrections are over corrections, and no solution is a permanent solution for everything. Okay, everything will get corrupt with time, and there will be a rectification of that. That rectification will be so harsh that again that will be noticed to be corrupt by people, and again that will change. So Western liberalism did bring prosperity and happiness to many societies and countries, right? But now we are saying that Western liberalism has only brought us to massive nihilism, or has people left people epistemologically unarmed to counter the Islamic questions, because it can be very well argued that almost everyone except Muslims had argued the so-called Western liberal talking points, right? Liberalism would have been victorious if it was not for Muslims and for communists siding with Muslims. But because of that, indirectly, Muslims are now the cause of the return to religiosity for many people. Okay, if we did not have a waqf board, if we did not have patharbazi in Kashmir every day, if we did not have patharbazi in Ram Navami processions here and there, if we did not have Muslim areas that you can't get to, if those sort of things did not exist, which does not exist today for any other religion, then I don't think we were getting back to religiosity or Hindutva or Hinduness or Indian culture anytime fucking soon. Okay, nor would Americans be so proud of George Washington and Thomas Jefferson all of a sudden. They were happy being capitalists and earning money, starting a business, coming up with innovations. Everyone's returning to conservatism because they have realized that communists से नहीं होगा कुछ. Communists और socialists पूरा देश का गांड मार देंगे, और कभी हमारे पत्थरबाज भाइयों को कुछ नहीं बोलेंगे. तो चलो हमको ये अब बचाना है. तो for now, the correction is that we will need a lot of Hindutva and some degree of Abrahamization as well. And okay, the next question was, the next comment was that a linguist is saying that we had discussed this at length as well, that some elder told him that Sanjay Dixit is also a fraud. as before 2018 he used to be secular like Quran in holy even for Hindus, but I don't know, but I don't see a point even if he's funded by BJP. So yeah, change of heart, change of evolution of thought to hoga hi, because the very next comment what SKT is saying that, well, they knew what Ambedkar wrote but it was inconvenient to talk about. I will argue it was not, okay, because the 1946 book Pakistan or Partition of India was basically unavailable in the in almost all libraries or online in India. Okay, it became available after 2014. It became common after 2014, and it became popular very much after Jesai Deepak talked about it in his debate with Shashi Tharoor for the first time. Okay, so I know PhD people, MPhil people from liberal arts academia who are absolutely surprised that Ambedkar said such things. So it was not that academics read it and hid it sinisterly. They had absolutely no fucking clue. Maybe the 50s and 60s academics knew it, but not the people who have grown up after 80s, okay, after 80s or mid 80s. These people, the people who are the people who are running all the academia and the governments today. These people are absolutely clueless about what Ambedkar wrote. It was consciously hidden away from public view. Ninod is saying unless there is a big rallying point like Ayodhya movement, new parties are hard to establish. Yeah, Hindutva don't believe in victimhood, so they may not voice or remember their failure unless it is pushed by. There is a beautiful diversity in the Indian right wing, Indic wing, or even inside Hindutva, that some people are against the victimhood narrative and some people are very much in favor of the victimhood narrative, which is why I think this will be a great balancing out, because the one mistake we are apparently seeing is that we have not complained enough, right? There needs to be some amount of complaint. नहीं तो किसी को पता ही नहीं चलेगा कि तुम्हारे साथ क्या हुआ है. वो बोलना ज़रूरी है, क्या करे. तो अब बहुत लोग पूरे ही दिन सिर्फ ये बोलते हैं, तो वो काम में आएगा, क्योंकि कुछ लोग थोड़ा कम बोलना चाहते हैं, मगर कम बोलने के लिए भी बहुत बोलने वाले लोग चाहिए. ओके, इट्स सॉर्ट ऑफ अ कॉन्सेंट्रिक सर्कल्स ऑफ radicals and moderates forever in every topic. Okay, we can say that in no matter what topic, any moderate can say they are a moderate because they have the privilege of someone else being a radical in that particular field. And that's how even individualism works, that only in a more or less homogeneous and culturally homogeneous society, individuality can be allowed to flourish. If everyone's an individual, then there's no society in the first place. That's the only thing individualist people got it wrong, that group identity is important when in a heterodox way some individual identity flourishes. Okay, otherwise where is the society? Thomas Sowell calls this the fallacy of composition. Okay, that imagine you have gone to a stadium, 50 people are sitting, one guy stands up, watches the match better. If 50 people stand up, then no one watches the match better. It was the same as everybody sitting down. That is the same with welfare schemes. That is the same with giving some people an upper hand to come out of their poverty. That is the same thing with individual rights versus group identity as well. If everyone's an individual, then no one is better off. Some people have to be conservative and absolutely maintain a group. उसके अंदर कुछ लोगों को फूलने फलने दो. What the Muslim countries get wrong mostly is that they are all about group identity, and there is absolutely zero fucking room for individual identity, which is why not too many intelligent people, not too many great scientists or artists come up in those societies, because science, art, ये सब creative चीजें होंगे ही individualists से, who will be heterodox people in their society. But heterodox होने के लिए बाकी society को homogeneous होना पड़ेगा.
Protesters in 2008, of course I'm probably speaking from a privileged perspective,
Sure.
and all of that. It started with blaming the protesters, but in 2010 there was a Jat agitation somewhere in Haryana, and they also threw stones at the police, and there was no, the retaliatory action was not in the form
Pellets.
of bullets, or pellets was much later, bullets or whatever, that wasn't done against them. And that, I think, like, that really made me think, why is this sort of dual treatment of Kashmiris, or why are they human? The human rights narrative became very strong because young, unarmed. I mean, they were armed with stones, but technically not having guns.
You never
and all
took
of
part
that.
in any stone pelting?
No, it's all boys. It's girls have a much more protected life in Kashmir.
But there are girls who took part and threw stones too.
I think that was much later. Around 2016, I think that phenomenon started, as far as I remember. In 2010, there was only one girl who was looking out of her window and she got shot.
Prakash is openly asking her, did you do stone pelting?
and she was killed. That also is, like a turning point in the minds of many people. But yeah, as a girl, you have a much more protected life in Kashmir. Boys have it, like they're much more exposed to
So
those things.
your sympathies were with the stone pelters at that stage?
In 2010, yes. I mean, the thing that we were saying is that the retaliatory action should not be so violent, like people should not be killed. And that's part of, what, like our main issue at that time was human rights. That was the narrative.
So among you students, what did you think would be an acceptable retaliation to stone pelters who were hitting at the forces at that time? What would have been a perfect...
I mean, the state has a lot of things at its disposal. Say,
No, what was
the
the
use of
conversation?
water
Water
cannons,
cannons, okay.
and all of that. Yeah, like that. But really, what it took, I mean, if we now
It
take
was Omar Abdullah who was the chief minister at that time, I think,
I believe
right?
so, but it's no different. Like 2016, it was the PDP government, I
PDP.
believe, and same kind of response.
They
So-
used water cannons with coloured water at that stage.
Yes, yes.
That angered many people because they said those kids are going to come back home in coloured clothes and then they'll be identified by the cops when the Shinakt parade is done. So that was the anger. So water cannon was used, but even that was criticized.
You're right.
Right?
Yeah.
And as far as the pellet guns were concerned, that was the option which I think Kashmir used as opposed to the
Bullets, live bullets,
yeah. So it was a crowd control that had worked in Israel, and that was a technology which was adopted in Kashmir at that stage. Am I right in saying
And
this?
there were a lot of people at that time who were drawing parallels to the Intifada of, the Gaza.
Correct.
But today, when I see, I'm much more grateful for today's situation because today it has become clear that Kashmir is not Gaza.
Smita Prakash, I think, has done a very good job interviewing her. She was very skeptical and she was asking the tough questions. She was pushing back on the tough, awkward, even uncomfortable questions. Although it's tough to have, complete faith on her because, after all, I think there is BJP involvement in this channel because absolutely random politicians also come on this podcast. Even Congress politicians come on this podcast which episodes which get absolutely no views. But everything she's saying, she might be saying those things because she was a plant, or even if she was actually truthful, she would have been saying these exact same things. So we will probably never know 100%.
And what it has really taken is a political will. Somebody had to break this ice. Somebody had to break the stalemate because Kashmir was just involved in this back and forth of protests and sporadic incidents of insurgency, infiltration, all of those things. Somebody needed to break the ice, and for that I would like to credit the present government, especially the Prime Minister, the Home Minister. They've ensured a political solution to it, which is, I would say, bloodless. And at a time when when the world is talking about civilian casualties in Gaza, I mean, you have to credit the establishment in Kashmir that there have been zero civilian casualties, since 2009, since the abrogation in the last 5 years. There have been zero civilian casualties in police action. And the abrogation, we were all up in arms. I went to Supreme Court.
Let's bring up the tweet on the screen which Shehla had made, in which I'm quoting, "Looking at the events in Middle East today, I realize how lucky we are as Indians. The Indian Army and security forces have sacrificed everything for security. Credit where it's due." And then you tag PMO India, HMO, which is Home Ministry, Manoj Sinha, who's the Lieutenant Governor, ADGPI, which is the Army, and Chinar Corps of the Indian Army, which is in Kashmir, for bringing peace to Kashmir. I'm just reading it out because there will be some who don't know what IDGPI is, those who are not on social media all that much, on Twitter. So you said this when you were looking, and it brings me back to that period of the Intifada. I had even written about that at that stage because there was this romanticism among the youth in Kashmir about Intifada, right? And everybody wearing the scarf and walking around, and you're seeing similar kind of visuals which are coming in rest of the world. Strangely enough, it's not happening in Kashmir. What do you think is happening? Why?
There are various aspects to this. The first aspect is that the present government, the government of India, they have started treating Kashmir not just as a security problem, but as a political problem. Because of Article 370 and 35A, there was this sense that we are separate. We have our separate constitution. We have a separate flag. For whatever it was worth, we may not be getting the facilities that people in the rest of India are getting. We may not be getting the same kind of treatment.
Okay.
But
some noob body language expertise here. Okay. Notice on which topics she starts smiling a little. Okay. Whenever she is talking about her past political views repeatedly in the entire interview, unknowingly she starts smiling, okay? Which smile usually I also have when I speak of some of my leftist views, okay? So that is a subconscious acknowledgement of how silly those views were, okay? That is one of the reasons I'm in the position that I think she is legit for now, because see unknowingly, these things can't be trained by BJP. These things were not prepared by her, prepared for her by a BJP PR machinery. That okay, remember to smile when you are talking about your past views. Okay, the moment she starts talking about for whatever it was worth, you know, we had our different flags and all, she starts smiling. That smile is absolutely a subconscious acknowledgement that yeah, I had some stupid views when I was young. That's the vibe I'm getting from her, and I get it as someone who also changed his views.
But even then, there was this kind of, sort of sense that we are separate or we are special or whatever it is. And it wasn't really serving any purpose, but people held on to it closely. Some people, I mean, of course, people who are pro-Azadi, they see it like as a red herring or something. They don't really consider it that precious. But those people who believed in the electoral process, etc., they held it as precious. They held it, people like myself, we used to say that, this is a sign of federalism, and federalism is good. It is within the ambit of the Indian constitution. But I think that, it is of course a consequentialist kind of yardstick that I'm applying here. It has served to end the psychological duality, this identity crisis, this hesitation to, say, are you an Indian or are you a Kashmiri? It has ended that thing. And that is one aspect of it. Like,
It's
it has
ended?
been... Today you see these young children. They are going to the Republic Day parade, Independence Day parade. I think I've written on Independence
Yes.
Day. They're participating in the festivities. Now, our generation, it was unthinkable that, we would participate in the festivities of August 15th organically, right?
But your mother did.
Yes, their generation did. Yeah, in fact, like they used to go to the Republic Day parades and all of that. And it was...
Your mother's generation went for the Republic Day parade.
yeah, like my mother, I think, in fact, she went for the Republic Day parade in Delhi, and that was something that was unthinkable for our generation. So, I mean, if we have to live here in India and we have to live peacefully, then it was necessary to end this politically, this identity crisis, to deal with it politically. So I think that credit to the present establishment for not treating Kashmir just as a law and order problem and security problem, because it was not. I think they managed to correctly diagnose, touchwood, I hope I'm not speaking too soon, they managed to correctly diagnose the problem that this,
See, would a BJP plant propped up by a BJP PR machinery say that touch wood, maybe I'm speaking too soon? She would be like, yes, I was absolutely wrong. BJP is the best shit to have ever happened to India. She's saying I'm cautiously, I'm skeptical still of BJP, but as for now, I'm saying that good things have happened. And that is one big gimmick part anyone who has a 180-degree shift in their political views must always, I think, consciously avoid, which I consciously avoid all the time. The selling point of my channel should not be, according to me, that wow, एक Bengali होके, former leftist होके भी ये सब बोल रहा है. My views should be as valuable, at least someday, on the same level as Desai Deepak, Vikram Sampath, Sitaram Goyal, etc. I don't want to be the guy who left his leftist credentials and became a right winger. Kitna courage ka baat hai. That should not be the goal. And that is what also I'm noticing in her, that she's not suddenly using that as a gimmick, that see, I'm a Muslim and even I'm saying BJP is doing such a great fucking job. She's saying no, I'm being cautious and skeptic. So far they have done a great job, and that is what makes me believe her.
It was giving a boost to a separatist kind of feeling, I would say, this separate flag, separate constitution, and, for whatever it was worth, it may or may not be serving our purpose, but it was there. So that's one. The second thing that is happening, the second important thing that's happening right now, is that there is a congruence between Delhi and the state administration. There is a clarity as to what the objectives are. There is a clarity as to how to deal with the situation. There is no confusion. A lot of steps that the administration takes, a lot of steps that the state takes
and
to
if
end.
you can really criticize that whatever BJP is doing in Kashmir is wrong, you are not going to criticize that from the left, right? The left has different problems with the BJP, and the people on the further right of BJP have different criticism of the BJP, right? So when a leftist in JNU is saying that the government, central government, is not really working in congruence with the LG of Kashmir, versus when a right winger says that no, the center is not working in congruence with the LG in Kashmir, those are based on completely different things, right? Whereas Shehla is saying that no, the center is actually working great with the LG. So Shehla's argument is actually in the middle. Leftists are saying no, government should have done completely something on the left side of things. Right wingers are saying no, government should have done it something more with a right wing tinge to the entire aspect. And she is saying that no, they are doing just perfect. To which you might actually have a legitimate argument to say that no, you think it's enough, but we don't think it's enough. We actually must shift to the right of this problem. But don't mistake her for a leftist here, because the leftists will also say that no, the government is not in fact doing a great job with the LG or collaborating with the LG in Kashmir.
To deal with the security situation, whether it's detentions or it's arrest or whatever cases, or even calibrated negotiations, whatever the steps are, there is no confusion. There is excellent synergy between the various security forces and even between security forces and the police right now. And the most important thing, now here's where I come in, and someone like me who has been vocal about human rights, who's been sensitive to this issue, our main ask was that civilian killings should not happen, right? They've not happened, as a matter of fact. The civilian killings, and in fact the security...
So what is she supposed to say here? The civilian killings are going on. You can't be a lying fucking asshole for all your life. Some people can be. Maybe she has decided that oh no, I can't keep up with this nonsense I'm spouting.
Operations, they are done in a way so as to minimize the collateral damage and civilian killings. Plus the honorable LG administration, they've also ensured that wherever such lapses happen, there has been action against cops, there has been action against security forces. The Amshipura fake encounter, you might have heard about it in Shopian. There was a court martial and an army man was sentenced to life for that. So these so if I had to describe the present administration, I have to credit, Mr. Manoj Sinha, his administration, the Lieutenant Governor. If I had to describe their 3 years in office in 3 words, I would say peace, accountability, and integrity. Recruitments are
low. So yeah, so interesting comments have come. Here to learn is saying Faiz Khan, Muslim BJP supporter, jo Prayagraj ya kahi par anti ka. Yeah, he's not that relevant now. He runs a restaurant of some sort. He was a small-time Shia local activist. He does some social work sort of a thing. He's not that significant. Yeah, Ninad is saying, I see right-wingers are divided on LG admin recently. Yeah, lots of critics of the LG, right. But many seem to be happy. It's pretty ambiguous. Yeah. So some people think all in good time, bro. And some people think, no, we must shift further right of this problem immediately. That's the only divide. Ravish Kumar can be a liar throughout his life. Yeah, some people can be, and they don't even know they are lying. That is the problem with the echo chamber concept. तो यही नाम इस चीज का ही नाम है ना. क्या करे, echo chamber में रहोगे तो हमेशा के लिए लगेगा. Because a lot of right wingers don't get how the shift happened for these leftists like us, or exactly how a leftist brain operates. We still have a lot to bring to the table. That you have no idea the kind of mental blockade we put on ourselves when we are leftists.
Are happening at a fast pace. I have just now qualified for the post of assistant professor, and there were 27 or 28 posts, and I don't remember the last time that so many posts were filled. And in the last less than 2 years, I have appeared for the civil services preliminary examination at the state level, at the UP level, thrice. Less than 2 years, 3 prelims exams. That's faster than even UPSC. So recruitments are happening, and when I did not qualify, but when the interviews concluded at 2:30 p.m. on the day the previous result was declared, at 8:30 p.m. within 6 hours, the result was made public.
Did you feel any discrimination when you were taking the exam?
I cannot allege any discrimination because I have been treated on merit and I have topped every entrance exam that I have qualified. I have just topped.
तो क्या करे? तो RSB saying Ravish Kumar knows he is lying. Come on. That might be very well the case, but it also might be very well the case that they actually have no idea, because I know how leftist premises work or operate, right? Anyone who's a former leftist knows what exactly can you criticize about this government being a leftist. So all that is still applicable. You don't have to be really a liar to bring up leftist arguments right now, because their premises are all screwed up. Let me see. He's asking to check some above comments as well. What do you think about Faiz Khan? Yeah, this is what I answered. She is useful. What politics is not identity politics? Even economy politics is identifying haves and have-nots as classes and identifying as one of them, or identifying with the party. Yeah, but economic politics for this particular tangent is also pursued by leftists only. The right-wing economic policy would be that, yes, you are have-not, so what? I'll just create a society where you can at least be a have someday. But with leftists, right-wingers would argue is that you'll have a society where poor people will forever be poor and the rich families will forever be rich. Like in the country, the families in India who were rich in 1947, those were the same fucking families who were rich in 1991, right? The person who was on the footpath having bath and living and having sex on the footpath in 1947, his descendants remained on the footpath even in 1991 unless they became some big political gunda. Okay. Other than that, there was absolutely no social mobility from 1947 to 1991, except maybe 0.0001% of the cases. And that is one of the findings of Sanjeev Sanyal's 2008 book as well. So social mobility कहाँ गया? गरीबों का भला करेंगे, गरीबों का भला करेंगे, गरीबों को कुछ खाने को नहीं है, पहनने को कपड़ा नहीं होगा, खाने को रोटी नहीं होगा, तो there is no social mobility. All we are looking for is social mobility as economic right wingers. Okay, that is why that income inequality, rising income inequality is absolutely a bullshit tangent. Whether there is social mobility or not, that is my concern. And whether the poorest person is better off today than he was 5 years back, that is my concern. It's not my concern why isn't the Rishabh Puller getting paid as much as Ambani.
Topped the assistant professor exam in sociology. So I cannot allege any discrimination.
Even at interview phase?
No, I got my interview went really well. I was asked to give a demo class and I got 11 out of 12 in the interview. So yeah, there is no discrimination.
Nobody asked you that, pardon me for saying this, but nobody said, weren't you part of the Tukre Tukre gang?
No. Nobody told me that. I was judged on my academic.
Did you expect that kind of a question?
I did, because I had earlier given a few interviews at the Kashmir University, etc. And yeah, that did come up. But the thing is that recruitments are happening at a record pace and they're happening in a very transparent manner. When you're declaring the result within 6 hours of the conclusion of the interview, there's no scope for manipulation of that.
Okay.
And I think for that you have to credit the LG administration. And I'm speaking just as a commoner. I'm not a spokesperson of any party. I don't hold a brief for anybody. Just as a common candidate who has given 3 civil services exams, who's given, I appeared in the UPSC exam, I appeared in the assistant professor exam. So just as a common person, I'm telling you what I see. There is infrastructural development, which you can see very visible. It's very visible.
Yeah.
There is a palpable perception of security. People can move around freely. If you come to Srinagar, there is the Jhelum riverfront. You can actually now see people taking a walk on that, like locals taking a walk. I don't like to say, people, whenever they're asked how the situation in Kashmir is improving, they'll say tourism. It's not just about tourism. For the locals now, there are, avenues. When we were growing up.
It's not the issue, because tourism तो वैसे भी था. कश्मीर में शूटिंग कब बंद हुआ और घूमने जाना कब बंद हुआ? कुछ महीनों के लिए कुछ वक्त बंद होते थे. Kashmir has forever been a big tourist hub. That doesn't mean it was not filled with terrorists.
Up, we didn't have anything to do. Like, our school would not take us for picnics because security situation. We did not have any avenues for sports. There was no cinema. There was no play area. Now there are all those things.
Didn't you as a kid ask this question of your mom? Like, there are children who... there are Kashmiris I've spoken to, I've had friends, of course, who bought into the separatist narrative.
Yeah.
They would go to Bangalore, they would go to restaurants, bars, pubs in Chennai, in Bangalore, not so much in Delhi because they are recognized in Delhi. They would do all this in these cities. And when I would ask them that if you can do this here, don't you ask that why can't you have cinemas? Why can't you have Bollywood? Why can't you have cinemas? Nahi, wahan nahi ho sakta.
Yeah. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. I think you hit the nail on the head.
What Smita is asking here about if you are enjoying those facilities in Bangalore, why don't you want them in Kashmir? That is another mental blockade that leftists have. I think if we delve deep into it enough, we will find that there may be some equivalence of these things among right-wingers as well. We are not bothered about a false equivalency here. But leftists in general, I think, are very easy to diagnose with this particular problem, that you love socialism, you love communism, you love Trinamool Congress, okay? You think Bengal is the best place ever? Why do you need to go outside to work? Forever and ever, okay? CPIM is great, communism is great. I need a job in Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore or USA. Now Trinamool is great. We are preventing fascism, but I will work in Delhi, Bangalore, Mumbai or USA. So that's the same shit that goes on with even Americans. California is a great state, Democrats are great, but I will go to fucking Nevada and I will change that place into Democrat, even though I left because of democratic policies. So that's the same kind of weird blockade that even people like Shehla, Rashid used to have, which Smita, Prakash is talking about, that I'll go to a cinema theater in Bengaluru, not in Kashmir. Okay, some important comments have come. So yeah, I watched that AIM podcast for about 20 to 30 minutes. I intend to watch the full of it. I haven't watched it fully as of yet. It's better to not have Bollywood. That was the only good thing. People need to understand Kashmiri separatists wanted tourists to get money, exactly, but didn't want Hindus to settle, exactly. Why, Smita? That is the difference between them and Khalistanis. Khalistanis are not even pretending to be the good guys. They are absolute dumb fucks. Why Smita didn't talk about the incidents of school teachers who got shot in Kashmir because they were Hindus? Yeah, and what you mentioned earlier as well, that Smita Prakash did not bring up the Kashmiri Pandit Exodus issue at all. All in good time. पहले दिन में द बेनिफिट, दैट्स द बेनिफिट ऑफ डाउट आई एम गिविंग हर, दैट पहले पॉडकास्ट में पहले दिन आई है 1.5 साल बाद मेंटल हेल्थ वगैरह फेस करके, इतना कंट्रोवर्सी फेस करके, थोड़ा मेंटल पीस मिला है इनको, इफ वी रियली थिंक दैट शी इज लेजिट, चेंज ऑफ व्यूज़ हुआ है, तो पहले दिन जब कोई पॉडकास्ट में आता है सब का सब अग्नि परीक्षा पहले दिन ही मांग लेने से नहीं चलेगा. Let us welcome her into our fold and let's see where we can go from here. If because there is a significant chance that she is actually legit. I was asking what politics is not identity politics. Free market politics is not identity politics. Libertarianism is not identity politics. That is why libertarianism actually does not work, because in theory it's completely devoid of any identity, which is why I think there is a place for libertarianism after there is a homogeneous society at large in place, inside where you can practice individualism or libertarianism even. It's a mental blockade which considers that Kashmir is a Muslim state. Yeah. Khalistan are ridiculously idiotic, yes.
First, like, we have sort of two lives. We have dual lives as Kashmiris. Outside we'll go to cinema hall, but in
Right.
Kashmir we'll think that, if we go to the cinema hall, like, what if there is an attack? What if there is a bomb blast or something? It is a real fear. I haven't gone to the cinema hall in Kashmir just yet, but a lot of people are going.
Yeah.
But yes, there was always this fear. When we are in Delhi, we don't think twice about going to the cinema hall. But yes, in Kashmir, it's an issue. Like, it's not just a decision, chalo chalte hain, gaadi nikal ke chalte hain. It's not that simple. Like, it's a...
You can't even... There
it's
were no
almost
beauty...
an ideological decision to go to the cinema hall.
You remember Duktarani Millat and what they did
yes.
to the beauty salons in Kashmir? You must have been in school at that time when it
I
happened.
guess, yeah.
It happened in the 90s school, college or whatever. You were at that stage where they just stopped... that happened then. But it also went on for so many years. It went on for decades that, if there were Kashmiri girls who were working in call centers or whatever, their pals would go to, go to get a massage done, a foot massage done. But if they were seen, then they were slapped. And beaten up. And whether in the street or whether at home, that why are you doing this? वो tourist हैं, वो बाहर से आए हैं, वो
तो
कर सकते हैं. तुम यहाँ के हो, तुम ये नहीं कर सकती हो. So that discrimination, while you talk of censorship and discrimination by the state, this was self-imposed discrimination which was happening.
Absolutely. It's things that you do to survive. You don't want to get caught up in a, sort of like vigilante incident. And you're right. If we oppose vigilantism in the rest of the country, we must oppose vigilantism in our state. It's just that,
very, very well said by Shehla here. Okay, now Here to Learn is asking an important question here that kahan gaya? Why does BJP do more for Muslims than for Hindus? Now, first of all, the theoretical counter argument would be that BJP is not building mosques after mosques. They are building the Ujjain Mahakal corridor, Kashi Vishwanath corridor, and Ram Janmabhoomi. They are not building mosques in those places, they are building temples, okay? So, वो तो एक counter argument है ही. But other than that, I don't think they are doing it for votes. I think BJP knows that Muslims won't vote for them as of yet, even if they just shower all facilities and freebies and infrastructure on them. Just because of that, they are not going to start voting for them immediately. Because one thing you must know that people like Narendra Modi, Shubhendu Adhikari, Himanta Biswa Sharma, these guys are equivalents of topmost athletes in any sport, topmost CEOs in any business field. These guys are the equivalent of those people, okay? If you would not question or if you would not go as far as to advise Virat Kohli on batting, we have no absolute stature or position to advise Narendra Modi about why or how to run a particular political campaign, okay? They absolutely know that we are no fucking way getting votes as of now. I think they think that someday this will lead to increased votes from Muslims. But are they then just depending on that long game? No. I think there are other reasons as well why they are showering this so much facilities on Muslims, which is the Amartya Sen way of thinking, which is the classic developmental economist way of thinking, which is the classic sort of left liberal, neoliberal way of also thinking, that every bad action done by everyone is just because of poverty. Just let poverty go away. All of a sudden people will become nice, cute, sweet human beings, which is pretty far away from the truth. But abhi they are in the power. This is the truism bolte hain jisko, that we just randomly know that it's kind of true. No one has ever given much thought about it. We have never delved deep into it. We just think garib hai isliye bhosri wala hai. But that is how our political establishment also thinks in all parties. So BJP believes this so much that they are actually putting in the effort to make sure that these facilities reach Muslims. पहले क्या होता था कि उन लोगों को भी लगता था कि ये गरीब है इसलिए मदद चोद है, अमीर बना दो सिर्फ अच्छे आदमी बन जाएंगे. मगर उन गांडू लोगों का फैसिलिटी पहुंचता भी नहीं था ग्राउंड लेवल तक. बीजेपी का पहुंच रहा है. दैट इज ऑल आई एम सेइंग. And the problem with this believing in this idea is that what happens when again a person comes to power who is not honest enough or who does not have that much grasp over his party, and then the leakages begin again. So your policy which depends upon a good person coming to power is still going on, whereas now there's a bad person in power. That is why we should not have so much dependency on the government. But Amartya Sen people like them, they do believe that just make people a little richer and people will behave good. Now we discussed how much Amartya Sen knows about Islam, right? That's next to nothing. The absolute crap he wrote in the first 20 pages of his book Identity and Violence. But other than that, what is Salvatore Babones's main research? That he is showing that we are a country whose GDP per capita is the same as some North African deserted, disastrous countries which are forever rigged with civil war. They are the most violent, most useless places on earth, have a GDP per capita similar to ours. So where is even poverty or getting rich a question when it comes to human character in India? It's absolutely not. The only predicator of human character in India, unfortunately or fortunately, is Hinduism, Sanatan Dharma to be more specific. There is no walking or avoiding this bush. Okay, I have forgotten all my figures of speech in English, unfortunately, but there's no two ways about it. For example, people keep saying that our India is liberal because of our constitution and because of our judiciary. Look at your fucking neighbors. Why isn't the judiciary and constitution working in those places? Pakistan never even went with a secular constitution, but Bangladesh at least has been trying for some time. And places where they do have secular societies, even those societies are now falling. What is preventing them from having a stable society? What has made us a stable society with 15% Muslim population, and who has really accepted this secular godlike constitution and judiciary? एक्सेप्ट किसने किया? कोई भी आके कुछ भी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन लिख देगा, एक्सेप्ट कर लेंगे सोसाइटी में? ये अंबेडकर का कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन लेके सऊदी अरेबिया के किसी के मुंह पे मारो ना, कौन एक्सेप्ट करेगा भोसरी के? तो एक्सेप्ट किया है हिंदुओं ने, इसके अलावा कोई आंसर नहीं है. तुम एथीस्ट हो, एग्नोस्टिक हो, जो भी हो, यू कांट गेट अराउंड दिस फकिंग क्वेश्चन. India is absolutely secular and liberal because of Hindus. Now everyone knows this line, I'm repeating it because it needs to be repeated in this particular context. That why are we so poor? Why is our GDP per capita like that of disastrous African countries? And even then we are not a fucking disastrous African country. That is because of Hinduism. The way it molds our brain, the way Hinduism, the teachings, the stories, the scriptures of Hinduism mold our way of thinking, molds our way of brain, molds our way of looking at the world. Everything, all of that comes mainly from Hindu scriptures. That is the only difference between us and Pakistan and Bangladesh and North Africa. And that's not something that Shehla or Rashid is in a position to acknowledge as of now.
They often make this demand of civilians that why don't you condemn terrorism? Why don't you condemn Duktarana Millat? It actually doesn't matter what we do, because the state needs to have the will to take action, to take some bold actions. And for that, I really congratulate. I am, really impressed by how the government of India has handled the whole Kashmir situation. Because, I used to think that I've said a lot of things about BJP, I've said a lot of things about the PM, the HM. But look at them, like they've taken so much criticism domestically. Internationally, India has been castigated for the abrogation. But they took all that criticism on them. And it doesn't make sense to me why somebody would, make such a risky, unpopular, whatever you want to call it, decision. And I've arrived at one conclusion, which is what caused my change of heart also. I've realized that the Honorable Prime Minister, the Home Minister, they are really selfless people who only care about the national interest. No matter how much, I know how much criticism we've made of the government, how much criticism the government faced internationally, domestically from the opposition. Why would anyone take so much criticism, if it weren't for the national interest? And it has ended up serving the national interest. And of course, I understand I'm taking it's not a deontological position, it's a consequentialist position that, now we are judging the actions. But certainly, like, I should not continue to believe that I am the Miss Know-all. Maybe some people, they have a better reading of the situation. They've taken certain steps. And has it resulted in saving of human lives in Kashmir? It has. Has it resulted in progress, development? It has. Has it resulted in us enjoying better freedoms, like now children can go to the play area at the mall? These are very superficial things, but actually they aren't. Now there is sports infrastructure. I mean, there is a Kashmiri in the cricket team, and there are Kashmiris they're doing very well in the Asian Games. There are so many athletes
Many
who have
points
performed.
that,
So these are, I mean,
they're not really superficial, no, Shehla?
Yeah.
Because you talk about trauma of growing up. You didn't have these things which to many people might seem superficial. I guess the word comes naturally to you because those
Smita
are the...
Prakash has done a fabulous job pointing this aspect out. And again, look at Shehla Rashid's smile. Okay, she is not saying that no. This is definitely a superficial thing. She is not harping on that. Neither is she saying that I was so wrong all my life and again I'm right all of a sudden now. BJP is the greatest fucking thing. She is saying those changes are superficial. She ends up saying that because that's still her vocabulary, that's still her lexicon. From being a leftist for all hardcore leftist, she's still a leftist, a hardcore anti-BJP person for all these years. That's the lexicon she ends up using by mistake. That these are all superficial changes. गरीब लोगों को तो अल्टीमेटली खाना नहीं मिल रहा है. जो भी हो जाए, पूरे देश में सबको नौकरी मिल जाए, सब कोई रेस्टोरेंट खोले, सब कोई ट्रैवल व्लॉगिंग करे, सब कोई यूट्यूबर बन जाए, सबको यूपीआई में पेमेंट दे भिखारियों को, मगर गरीब लोगों के पास खाने का कुछ नहीं है. That's the one sentence they'll keep repeating. In the same way, by mistake, Shehla Rashid ends up saying superficial. And how do I know it's by mistake? I suspect again because she smiled. See? Every time she is pushed on her, or she has to address her views, which she obviously thinks are now wrong, the views she used to hold, she ends up smiling. That is what any grown-up person would do while talking about their idiotic views when they were much younger. Again, she smiled while talking about superficiality and it not being superficial anymore.
The terms which were used earlier for these things.
Yes, for these things. I mean, also I'm a bookworm. I'm a bit of a bookworm, so I was never involved in any sports. My sister was.
Yeah, but this is venting of energy. It was the same thing, those kids out on the streets because they had nothing else to do. Okay, Shehla, let's take a closer look at this timeline of your tweets. Because, the criticism which I'm sure even before the podcast is aired, it'll be like, oh, you brought Shehla Rashid. Because, there will be, the Kashmiri Pandits will be very annoyed because, you were a vocal supporter of the separatist.
She laughs pretty insensitively. Now that shows that she is not managed by a PR firm here. She still has no idea what the narrative about Kashmiri Pandits are. And if a Kashmiri Pandit just watched her laughing at this, they would be again pissed off their fucking minds.
This narrative for some time, especially with the Afzal Guru incident. So there is like no prisoners taken attitude by a certain section of the right-wing media who are not willing to forgive you for a certain number of tweets that you have done. It's all right. You don't need to seek forgiveness or anything like that. We're human. We are allowed to change of heart. But then they feel that, let's get into that later. But, as that it impacted on so many things at that stage. The CAA never got, it was never implemented because of various things. You can talk about the fallout quite a bit as to what happened then. But let's talk about what many of them feel is that now that from becoming a Modi critic to becoming a Modi supporter, you've explained how it happened because it was organic, what you say.
Yeah.
But if you see the timeline in many of them say that, the reason is because the Lieutenant Governor granted prosecution against you, because of your tweets about the army.
Yeah.
And in 2023, you and Shah Faisal, you withdrew pleas against the abrogation of 370.
Yeah.
For our expat viewers and listeners, Shah Faisal is an Indian bureaucrat from Kashmir who resigned from government service in 2019, citing unabated killings in Kashmir. His resignation wasn't accepted and he was reinstated in government service in 2022. But between this period, he, along with Shehla, who's our guest today, formed a political party in Kashmir, and that seems like it was a non-starter. So back to you, Shehla. In August 2023, you started praising the centre and the Lieutenant Governor of Jammu and Kashmir in particular. You've explained as to how the change of heart happened. What do you say to critics who say that this deeper connection is superficial? To use your word, superficial. That the deeper connection is superficial. It's because of legal issues that you were mired under.
So two things. First of all, I started supporting some of the executive actions in 2020, which is the pandemic year. So at that time, I had supported the lockdown. And because, I hadn't made any overt overtures towards the government or whatever, I was still surrounded by an echo chamber that immediately shut me down. They were like, oh, why are you supporting the government? And it was then...
Echo chamber se yaad aaya. Yesterday, she was in the second spot in Twitter trending for India. Go to that hashtag. The hashtag is just called Shehla Rashid. Go to that hashtag and you'll see the amount of galis she is getting from all her fans and friends for all these years. Okay, they are insanely vicious towards her. Okay. Let's see if any important comment. Here to learn is saying it's weird to see places where original invaders came from is more moderate now than parts of Indian subcontinent, especially Pakistan. Yeah, that is the non-hypocritical strong state aspect of USSR, right? USSR decided that religion is bad. We will kick out all element of religiosity from the hearts and minds of these people. That's why Uzbekistan is an absolutely secular place now. Abhijit Ayar Mitra has spoken of it repeatedly, and even that my machine learning expert friend, he has been to Uzbekistan earlier as well, and even right now he is going to Uzbekistan again this weekend. And the experiences he says is of any normal first world or I mean secular stable society. Okay, those sorts of things. It's not a Islamic nation by any stretch of the imagination, and that's because of the strong hand of USSR. But that is there the difference between them and CPIM. That CPIM instead decided, yeah, religion is bad, but we will not criticize just one religion.
And that I realized for the very first time in 2020 that a lot of the criticism that we do, a lot of the criticism of the governments is for the sake of it.
Yeah.
And that's where I come again to the point of polarization, that just because Mr. Modi is doing something, we have to oppose it.
We bole to Kashmiris
Or we the left narrative, the left liberal ecosystem, opposition, whatever you want to call it, critical. Let's just call it, people who are critical of the government.
The echo chamber that you're talking about.
Yes. I was very much part of that echo chamber. Yet, I still saw, in countries like Sweden, etc., where the governments did lock down, people protested against it. They said, no, you cannot lock down because citizens' rights, democracy, etc. And in the US, where the Trump administration did not lock down. Teachers, you must have seen some of the posts by teachers. They were saying you are sending us to the death row by not shutting down, right? So what was the choice with the government in 2020? To shut down or to not shut down? So I think it was a classic damned if you do, damned if you don't situation for a government. And I feel that the government had no choice but to lock down, right? But there was this entire conspiracy theory around it. There were a lot of conspiracy theories around, the pandemic. Like one of the conspiracy theories was that this is part of some global push for financialization, for towards a cashless economy, greater financialization. It's a big corporate. So, British political conspiracy theorist David Icke, I listened to him also at that time. And he said that this is nothing, COVID is nothing, but it's just a global, sort of conspiracy theory to push financialization. And we used to think in India, and I must admit I'm one of those people who would say that, this digital is, digital India is just part of that greater push for financialization. UPI is just part for that, and it's going to help the bigger corporates. But what did I actually see? I actually conducted fieldwork, and I saw, because my research is on the political experience of digitality in India, and I conducted fieldwork, and I realized that, the evidence on the ground does not support that conspiracy theory that COVID is a push for financialization across the world, etc. It doesn't support that. And UPI is not part of that, because UPI is not helping the bigger corporates, or it is not helping the already credit-worthy. It's actually helping build credit.
Internet went away or what? Wait, let me just rewind then a little bit.
It was a classic damned if you do, damned if you don't situation for a government. And I feel that the government had no choice but to lock down, right? But there was this entire conspiracy theory around it. There were a lot of conspiracy theories around, the pandemic. One of the...
Yeah. So during lockdowns, all the people in India who don't follow American politics even a little, who get entire their national news, international news, American politics news, all from headlines from a little bit of HuffPost, Vox, etc., or even mostly from Anandabazar Putrika, people who are above 40 or 50, all of them think they know all about Donald Trump and American politics because they read some goddamn article in Anandabazar Putrika of all things. So those people were absolutely against lockdowns in India because Modi was doing it, but were also opposed of Donald Trump because he was, or the right wingers of America because they were opposing lockdowns. What the fuck was that about? Okay. So these are the hypocrisies which have woken all leftists, the leftists who have become right wingers are exactly because of these particular things, that there was always a disconnect, that we were curious about some things, that okay, what the fuck is going on here? Why isn't this adding up to this? Okay, and the moment once you see that, oh wait, this is a gigantic hypocrisy. Oh wait, even that's hypocrisy. Oh wait, even that's hypocrisy. Oh wait, this entire leftist premise, all leftist talking points are based on hypocrisies. Then you realize, oh shit, I'm on the wrong side of this. So she is absolutely explaining step by step, okay, all the realizations that a leftist goes through when they become a conservative, or at least a nationalist, or for in her case, at least not that anti-BJP. That's the extent of her shift in views, right? So yes, lockdowns were a gigantic eye-opening thing for many people. That you are opposing lockdowns in India. What the fuck is going on? You are equivalent of a Trump supporter now. Trump supporters have a completely different reason for opposing lockdowns. That's libertarianism, freedom, etc. And here you are opposing it just because you hate Modi. What's the alternative here? You're not going to do a lockdown. Everyone's going to roam around in the entire country. And then, of course, my argument would still be the American right-wing position that, yeah, young people should not have been forced to lose their jobs or not go to jobs. But even that's has to be a more nuanced argument in India, because in India, most young people live with their parents. So if you go to work, you are going to be still healthy, but you are going to give coronavirus to your grandparents and your parents, who are mostly have comorbidity all across the country. But a counter argument could be made even for that they were going to get corona some way or the other anyway, because you are still going to get vegetables from the market, or your kam wali bai is going to come. You were going to get coronavirus anyway. उसके लिए पूरा इकोनॉमी बंद कर दे के कितने लोगों का नौकरी का सत्यानाश करके, कितने लोगों का लाइफ टाइम सेविंग्स का गाड़ मार के, स्पेशली फॉर लाइव म्यूजिशियंस, ओके, द लाइफ टाइम सेविंग्स हैव डिसअपीयर्ड इन द 2-3 years that they could not perform or could not teach people. So especially I'm talking about people, guitarists or live musicians, octobat players who are in their 50s, okay, all of a sudden they could not even look for online students, etc. That was done by much younger guitar teachers. तो ये सब करने का ज़रूरत शायद नहीं था, because they were going to get corona anyway. But why the fuck were leftists of India so much hardcore against lockdown? For absolutely no fucking reason. And that wakes up any sane person, among which Shehla might be one of them.
Conspiracy theories was that this is part of some global push for financialization, towards a cashless economy, greater financialization. It's a big corporate. So British political conspiracy theorist David Icke, like I listened to him also at that time, and he said that this is nothing. COVID is nothing, but it's just a global, sort of conspiracy theory to push financialization. And we used to think in India, and I must admit I'm one of those people who would say that this digital is, digital India is just part of that greater push for financialization. UPI is just part for that, and it's going to help the bigger corporates. But what did I actually see? I mean, I actually conducted field work, and I saw, because my research is on the political experience of digitality in India, and I conducted field work, and I realized that, the evidence on the ground does not support that conspiracy theory that COVID is a push for financialization across the world, etc. It doesn't support that. And UPI is not part of that, because UPI is not helping the bigger corporates, or it is not helping the already creditworthy. It's actually helping build creditworthiness for a population which is hitherto, unbanked. It has helped the greengrocers. It has helped the hawkers, the coconut vendors, the chapri-walas, there's a girl who is, giving this home beauty services during COVID because all the beauty parlors were shut down. It is helping her. So it's actually making our population bankable. It is not comparable to the credit card movement in the West, because the credit card rests on the assumption of, the credit card needs creditworthiness. You can't just get a credit card. That's not the case with UPI. It's not pushing that. It's actually making our population bankable. And this is when, in 2020, this is when I started realizing that some of the things that we say do not add up.
Yes.
So frankly, Smita, I had to give up, those ideologies and those prisms, which neither had explanatory power nor predictive power.
Right.
So I had to give up those deterministic kind of narratives, which neither had any explanatory power nor predictory power anymore. So I had to give up those kind of discourses, and I had to step outside of the echo chamber, and I had to look at things from my own perspective. Now herein comes my research, because my research is on the political experience of digitality in India. What I found is that there is a big difference between how the political experience of the digital happens in the West and how it happens in India. In the West, it is very well documented by now that there is these algorithms, the algorithmic governance, because in the West there is paucity of labor, so the push is on automation of services, which is not the case in India. I mean, you still have a human interface and complete data sets. I'll come to that. But in the West there is this push for automation because labor is less, and governance, for example, allocation of welfare. I've studied some of these things. So in Britain, some people are just shunted out of the pension system, and there's no way for them to appeal. So what these algorithms are doing in the West is that they are encoding white privilege. And scholars have called it automating inequality. So that's the phrase that is used for it, automation of inequality. So you're just taking...
This is one of the reasons I think she's legit, because she's still a commie academic out and out, okay? She's talking based on Western Marxist lenses still. So they are not really white supremacist in nature. It's just a statistical fallacy to call that white supremacy. But it is true that those biases are not possible even in India's algorithms in these cases. She's correct on that front. Yeah, she is still leftist. Okay, let's check some comments now. So Vaibhav is saying she brought up lynching instances couple of times. Yeah, but Smita didn't push her enough. So ye pehla inka interview hai. So I'm giving both of them a benefit of the doubt. She still has leftist mindset. Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. Okay, she's not a right winger or Hindutva guy all of a sudden. She's absolutely a leftist academic who's acknowledging that BJP is leftist, guys. Which is why I think she's more believable. Okay, and as for her knowing about radical teachings of Islam, that will depend on in which language she has read the Quran, or who was she taught it by, which Maulana, because not all Maulanas teach Islam the same way, and not all translations are the same, as you all know, as Arun Shodi has discovered. So she may very well be, I don't think that is the case. I don't think she will be that ignorant on these things, but many Muslims are really ignorant about what exactly is written. A lot of urban English medium educated Muslims who are friends with many people amongst us, a lot of them are absolutely unawares when we say that, see, this is what's written, or this is what we have a problem with, or this is what was being done because it's written there, etc. They have no idea that they are written or recommended.
Existing inequalities, you're putting them in an algorithm and they're getting automated and they're getting amplified. That's not the case with Digital India, because first of all, our data sets are complete. There is no like racial segregation in India. There's no such thing. The data sets are complete. Everybody has an Aadhaar, and there is no automation, or there is no encoding of privilege. Everybody, the Digital India, I mean, that's been a big part of why I have sort of exited the echo chamber, so to speak. Digital India is secular. It does not encode any racial or anti-minority bias, and I can tell you that because I went looking.
So far, no statistical fallacy has even been brought up to even accuse that digitization of India is anything but secular. But if someone is an asshole enough, they will be able to in some years. Okay, you can have enough data points and you can come up with statistical fallacies anywhere in the world. On any topic, okay, you can draw a graph to call anything evil and privilege, white supremacy, etc. Okay, they can find white supremacy even in India. But as of that hasn't even happened. That even at that accusations have not come in really. So that really shows that she is nothing but just right and truthful in whatever she's saying. What can we do? And one important question has come here. RSB is saying, what's your views on Yana Mir? Now, I don't know much about Yana Mir. Has she also shifted in her views or something? Because all I know is she does some travel vlogs or some activism, local NGO type of works in Kashmir. I have seen her videos on Marthan Sun Temple. That's all I know about her. Not much more than that.
With a microscope, I wanted to extend this. This was my research is in political science, so I wanted to extend this Western narrative of automation of inequality. I wanted to see how it operates in India. I went to these CSCs, the service, the Aadhaar centers, and all of that. I interviewed people. I actually looked at instances. Personally speaking, I applied for a domicile certificate post abrogation. I think I was one of the first people to apply for a domicile certificate because there were so many anxieties that now our state subject certificates do not hold any value. Now people from outside will come and they will be given our everything.
Outside बोले तो outside Kashmir.
Outside Kashmir, yeah. And there were these, fears of a demographic inversion almost, that अब 370 चला गया, अब बाहर के लोग आके बस जाएंगे, इनको सब कुछ मिल जाएगा. There were
Which
these
is
anxieties.
what, not just the separatist narrative, it was also the narrative which was fueled by the politicians of mainline politicians. We saw this by Mehbooba Mufti, we saw it by Farooq Abdullah, Omar Abdullah, everybody. It was that our lands will be taken away.
Yeah. So that was the general, like everybody, that was the commonsensical. It was a kind of like, thing that everybody says. But what did we actually see? I mean, if you're a rational thinking individual, you have to take an objective view of things. So out of this anxiety, I was one of the first people to apply for a domicile certificate. And voila, I just got my domicile certificate, There was no discrimination based on my political ideology or my faith or whatever. No, there was none. The entire process was automatic. I did not have to supplicate before any political authority or any bureaucrat to get my domicile certificate. And that's also when I realized, oh, okay, so there's no big conspiracy happening here, right? I mean, how many people, the Honorable Home Minister, he also said it in his speech in Srinagar. He said that how many people have come from outside. It's true. Like, he also acknowledged this, that there was this anxiety.
Okay, now history, if it does rhyme or even repeat itself, we are at least I'm in a very creepy spot here, guys. If BJP is the Congress of those years, Congress equivalent of pre-partition days, and if Sitaram Goel was right that BJP will become Congress, so at the moment what you are saying is that the things we are criticizing BJP for example here, that she is saying that outsiders have not really come in, and Amit Shah has said it as a matter of achievement when he has gone to Kashmir, that yes, see, no outsiders came. वो कश्मीरी पंडित तो अभी भी रेफ्यूजी बन के दिल्ली में बैठे हैं, हमने कहाँ उनको जगह दिया. The reason we are criticizing them for is what Shehla Rashid is still celebrating. That not only says that Shehla Rashid might be legit, but that again shows that we still have a problem in this entire fiasco. It is a fiasco at the very least. So how are we going to tackle that then? So we can first of all welcome her that okay, चलो पागलों की तरह सिर्फ एंटी बीजेपी बातें करना बंद कर दिया, मगर अब बीजेपी को अप्रिशिएट किया जा रहा है फॉर थिंग्स विच वी आर अपोज्ड टू बीजेपी. So that shows that she is legit at least.
And that's when I realized that the digital India, it's not like, the experience of the digital in the West. It's different. The digital India is secular by design. And it does not encode any, anti-minority bias or anything like that. So that's when my research started taking a different direction, because I went to the field with a critical orientation. And what I found was that, India needs to be...
Exospheric Icarus, I'll again give Smita Prakash the benefit of doubt here, that she could not have done that, man. After all, she was not invited to see. I'm going to call you for a debate officially. Only in those cases you can do this. After all, it's a sort of an invitation to a guest where you are having a polite conversation. That is really the main theme of such conversations. You can't be tougher more than this.
Not castigated, but celebrated for the implementation of Digital India, because it has not served the, the big corporates, etc. Everything works great. So if I use DigiYatra, there's no point for me to romanticize backwardness for other people. I should not be a hypocrite. What I do myself, if I use UPI, I use DigiYatra, I use DigiLocker, then why should I, keep...
We are expecting leftists, Bengali leftists mainly, to wake up from this hypocrisy, right? And she has woken up from this hypocrisy.
On opposing it. So there was the question of intellectual honesty involved over there.
Yeah.
And as I said, this started in 2020. Yes,
and
you talked about...
all of us changed, a whole lot of us changed our minds because of the extra things we read and podcasts and speeches and different online courses all of us took in since the corona days, right? So this is a big part of hypocrisy that Shehla Rashid is saying that she got rid of, that we are all using DigiLocker, UPI, etc. But we are going on saying that it is something very evil that has been planned by Modi. Okay, Modi ने किया है तो evil ही होगा. कैसे हो रहा है? Why am I then using it and getting a benefit? What the fuck is going on here?
This, sanction given by the LG and all of that, I would say to that the political process and the, judicial process, they are different. Our courts are not determined by what is said on social media or, what a politician. Courts are independent. This is not some kangaroo court we are talking about. This is the Indian judiciary. The judiciary and the executive, they are separate. So no, I
would say commendation, Shehla, it coincided with your sharing of an
interview. And one other reason why she might be now finding out these great things about our institutions in general, the judiciary, etc., that might be because as a student all these years, she was what was the information she was being fed? posters and journals which are based on just quotations, one line of a verdict by this judge here, okay, one headline twisting or sensationalizing this judgment there, and she doing activism based on that. But now that she's not just a sociology student, now that she is preparing for government exams, she somehow seems to be obsessed with government jobs. She is preparing for one government job after the other. For that, she has had to learn the nitty-gritties and inner workings of India's institutions to a much larger detail, I think. And for that, because of that, she has been able to compare it with other countries and other societies. That, okay, what am I reading here? The things I'm learning about my country's institutions, that's not what I believed in. This seems to be like much of a much robust institution than I had judged based on just headlines and journals here and there. So that seems to me a very believable path of shifting her views.
Interview featuring Rais Mattu, the brother of Hizbul terrorist Javed Mattu, and Rais displays the Indian national flag in that video, and you posted it, and he says in an interview that he waved the Tiranga because it was part of his heart, telling him that, and there was no pressure on him. Was there any pressure on you? Because you were saying that it is when you did your research, you got to know and you willingly stepped out of that echo chamber of which you were part. Your critics will say that there was pressure on you by the left wing, because there are people who will not, from both, from those whose company you have left and from those whose company you refuse to be in. Both of them are critical of you to say that you must have come under pressure, otherwise how could you have done this?
There was nobody pressured me. I've been living my life quite peacefully. As I told you, I mean, if there was discrimination, they could have given me a 0 in the interview, or I could have been barred from the process. There is no pressure on me. I'm living my life normally. Yes, there is the question of what I've said, and I'm willing to apologize for it, because I relied on second-hand information to say some of these things, even though I can say a lot of things to contextualize it, but I said good things also.
What I said. That is how leftists operate. That is how even most leftist academics operate. It's all second-hand information after second-hand information, and she is exactly saying what the problem is, that I had those views because I was relying on second-hand information. Show me some liberal arts PhDs who have read any fucking primary source in their lives. It's all journals and papers and journals and papers. Only people who go into research and not just remain professors their entire lives, they are the only ones who read some primary source. Or people who have intentions of writing books. Even then, some leftists write books based on just their knowledge of reading other books, or secondary, tertiary resources, etc. But primary source is a very, very underrated skill that PhDs don't really pursue, especially people in graduation and master's level in liberal arts. They read almost no primary source, especially in history, sociology, etc. So it's very believable that she would realize that, oh my god, I had this view because I was not getting it from the primary source.
About the administration, they were taken out of context, etc. All of that is fine. But as I said, the judicial process and the political process are separate. This is not the People's Republic of China, where the judiciary and the executive are one. No, the judicial process will go on separately, and this will go on separately. But it's a question of intellectual honesty. It's also a question that when something good is happening, if good things are happening in Kashmir, what should we do? I mean, you look at a US Congress report recently. There was some report in the US Congress. They are still asking for internet to be restored in Kashmir. Now, you realize how out of touch with reality some of these narratives are. And at the same time, when I said good things about Kashmir, of course, it wasn't without backlash. I understand that. But it's a question of, backlash versus intellectual honesty. So should I be worried about the backlash, or should I just be honest with myself? There should be some integrity. I mean, there's this black feminist called Bell Hooks. She talks about integrity when there is congruence between your beliefs, thoughts, and action. So as I said, if I am using DG Yatra,
she is now using black feminists to justify her support or less criticisms of BJP. Okay, that still shows she is still a leftist, and that based on at least ideology, in theory, I must be still opposed to her, but her pathway seems believable again. And also this particular issue of her realizing that people in USA are still so clueless, still so fucking goddamn clueless about India's operations, that even in US Congress today, they are talking about bringing back internet in Kashmir.
If I am using whatever, UPI, etc., I haven't handled cash in 2 years, I think. So why should I then continue to, hold these I used to be
She is smiling when it comes to her addressing her stupider views when she was much younger, okay? But also, now she will get into this particular tangent a little more specifically. She will just touch upon it, that this was a mindset change and a personality change as well, that when I am seeing that good things are happening in Kashmir, why should I be a frustrated fucking bitch and just avoid any appreciation for all the good things that are happening? If a person is really has a lifestyle like that, that they are always going to see what's the worst thing and going to crib and complain and shout and be an activist about only that all their lives, that's a very, very unhealthy and unhappy way to live. And she does not want to do that anymore. She had health problems, both physical and mental. She said that she had a gigantic ligament operation or something, and now she's doing yoga, etc. So yoga is going to make you much healthier, and becoming healthier is going to help you process information better, because your brain is much more hydrated. The neurotransmitters in your brain is functioning better. For that you will process information better. For that you will find the positives in everything, and for that you will at least notice what is what. You will see a spade for a spade. You will not think that Musalman khatre mein hai in India all the time. So it all adds up. That's all I'm saying.
The Aadhaar at one point, but why should I hold that view anymore? When I see that it's working perfectly, I haven't. So I'll give you an example. I talked about Digi Yatra, right? So in the West, there is an entire body of literature on how the facial recognition systems actually exclude Asian, Black minorities, and they only encode white privilege. Have we seen such an instance in India? No. Is there any instance where somebody from a certain region of India has been not recognized by Digi Yatra? You tell me if there is any such instance. There isn't, actually, because we don't have those problems. Like, we don't have a deeply rooted racism in our country. And I think that the present moment, where we see religious conflict, open religious conflict across the West, across the world, there is confrontation on the streets between Jews and Muslims, between Christians and Jews, whatever. In India, we don't see that. So I think we should take a moment to celebrate our own, deep-rooted secularism instead of looking for Western models of secularism.
This is what I was talking about in the beginning. What is that deep-rooted secularism? कहाँ से आया? आसमान से गिरा ये deep-rooted secularism? उसके लिए तो कभी ना कभी शैला रशीद को credit देना होगा हिंदुइज्म को. Maybe that day will never come. Maybe it will come in the next 10 years. But that is the truth. Otherwise, what else? What is the mystery that's going on here? It's not not a text, not just a book written by 5 people, accepted by 100 crore people. It's not a racial issue, because people of your same race are absolutely screwing up their countries all around you. What is special going on in India? And that's Sanatan Dharma.
I'll be honest enough to say that I'm one of those people who used to
see only discrimination.
Yes, see only discrimination, and look at how great the West is. They have such strong statutory protections. Where are those statutory protections now? There is open anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, whatever, you name it. Everything is out there on the streets. Where are those strong statutory protections?
This is a pretty big acknowledgement. She acknowledged the anti-Semitism that's also going on in the West and in the streets of West while talking about Israel and Palestine. Okay, that is a very significant thing for me, that she acknowledged that there is anti-Semitism, because since she's a leftist in almost everything, even now, I expected her to say that, yeah, see, West is so bad, now we are a post-colonial society, we are different, BJP is doing great work. But in the West, it's all, they are all evil Jews who still hate the state of Palestine. No, she said anti-Semitism is going on. That is very significant to point.
You had said, you were very critical of some BJP politician. I have to put it in context because about the anti-Muslim sentiments regarding conversions. And I'm reading from your tweet, you had written sharpest decline in birth rate among Muslims from 1992 to 1915 to 2015. Also, neither migration nor conversions have had any impact on the religious composition of the country. Conversions are rare.
Yeah, we are saying that based on no recent data, of course. But other than that, this idea of lowering fertility rates, that is actually true, because that is one of the reasons why Narendra Modi is doing so much freebies for Muslims, etc. So that their professions change, so that they have less incentives to just give birth to 5-10 kids. That BJP thinks that is how they can solve this problem, and to be honest, they can address this to a large extent by doing this, by taking this path. It could have been done by free market as well, but चलो गवर्नमेंट से भी हो रहा है तो हो रहा है. जिस दिन कोई हरामी आएगा प्रधानमंत्री बनेगा तब ये सब फिर से गड्ढे में जाएगा. But as of now, this is also bringing real results in bringing down fertility rates for every religion. Maybe the rate of decrease is lesser for Muslims, but it is decreasing the rates.
in India. It shows you how baseless the ruling party's propaganda is. Your stance has changed since then. I'm also going to read out what the Minorities Affairs Minister had stated this year as per the population report, a technical group on population projections 2020, July 2020. The National Commission on Population country's projected population in 2023 stands at 138.82 crore. Okay, according to this, applying the same proportion of 14.2% as was the census in 2011, the projected Muslim population in 2023, because there's no census, it would be 19.75 crore. When you have 19.75 crore Muslims, that's like entire country's population in
Correct.
many places,
Yes,
right?
yes.
In a Hindu majority country, when you have 19.75 crore Muslims,
Yeah.
do you see the kind of discrimination as, say, a New York Times or a Washington Post literally on a weekly basis is putting out?
Yeah, yeah.
You don't see a counter narrative happening at all, because I guess Indian media is just exhausted. Or Kashmiris or Indian Muslims are exhausted and say, why the hell should we keep saying that, no, there is no discrimination, which you are saying today,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
you didn't find any discrimination.
Yeah.
Is it right or is it wrong to expect from the Muslim community to speak out like you have spoken out today, that there is no discrimination in, say, getting an ID card, in going to a pub, in going to a movie hall,
Yeah.
in getting sitting for the UPSC
Exam,
exam,
yeah.
right? Is it unfair to ask the Muslim population to speak out like you're speaking out today?
So there are 3 or 4 things here. First of all, is there communalism in this country? Yeah, sure. Like 70 years back, we were partitioned on a religious basis. So we cannot say that communalism began when BJP came, or it began in 2014. No, we've been partitioned on religious lines, and it was a very bloody partition. It was not a pretty sight, by all accounts. So yeah, there has been communalism, and there will continue to be communalism. At the same time, the problem with the critical orientation is that we only focus on the negatives. We forget to celebrate the positives. Are there positives? Yes. I mean, scholars of secularism like Professor Rajiv Bhargav, they talk about Indian secularism and they compare it with the Western. Like Western secularism is rooted in statutes and all of that. But Indian secularism, which is more appropriately called pluralism,
And lived experience.
that is civilizational in nature. So whatever incidents you see, for example, the partition.
ठीक है ओके सिविलाइजेशनल तक भी आ गई है, मगर वो क्लियरली बोलना होगा वो सिविलाइजेशन क्या सिविलाइजेशन है, आर्यन सिविलाइजेशन है या द्राविडियन सिविलाइजेशन है या ट्राइबल सिविलाइजेशन है या वो हिंदू सिविलाइजेशन है. तो we are almost there with her, guys. She has almost acknowledged it, but I don't expect anything more from her in such a short time. It will take more time, if at all she does. It's not that she has to agree with us or me on every fucking thing, but acknowledging that what was the reason for India's general secularism or pluralism, and that reason is civilizational. In other words, that is the credit of the Hindu society in general. But what she said right before that, wait, and I'll interrupt you guys a little bit. I want to answer something here, that one guy was asking, Exospheric Icarus was saying that, do you plan to address how American right wing is going through a meltdown right now because of anti-Semitism in the right? Not today's topic, but quite serious. Yeah, all I want to say is that there are 2 ways to look at this, right? What position should America take, and how do I comment on that as an Indian, and what would I say or do if I were an American? If I were an American, I think Vivek Ramaswamy's posture or opinion on this is the best here. He is saying, yes, Hamas did bad things. Yes, Israel, तुम जाके उसका गाड़ मार दो, मगर मुझसे पैसा मत मांगो. बी इंडिपेंडेंट. तुम हमारे दोस्त हो, हम मॉरल सपोर्ट देंगे, डिप्लोमेटिक सपोर्ट देंगे, मगर पैसा हमारा नहीं. It's a long live stream already. It will be great if we start from 12 again tomorrow. So thanks for joining, guys. We are up at the 54-minute mark. We will start from here tomorrow again. Remember all the topics, tangents we were discussing in the comment sections. So good night, guys. Thanks for joining.